It is very easy to make a Masters of the Universe trailer that sells the broad strokes. Prince Adam, the Power Sword, Eternia, Castle Grayskull, Cosmic War, bright colors, giant muscles, big declarations, a few explosions. Throw Leto in some heavy skull-themed armor, let Nicholas Galitzine swing the sword, and you can cut together something that at least looks expensive. But that is not enough for a property like this. Masters of the Universe has always lived on a strange balance between sincerity and absurdity. If you lean too hard into realism, it dies. If you lean too hard into irony, it dies even faster. The new trailer gives me hope because it looks like the film may have actually found that balance, and the strongest clue is Skeletor. That sounds strange when the hero is supposed to be the obvious selling point, but it is true. He-Man is not a hard concept to understand. He is mythic, direct, and visually iconic in a very straightforward way. Skeletor is the harder challenge. He has to be theatrical without becoming silly, threatening without becoming generic, and faithful to a design that is inherently colorful and exaggerated without looking like he wandered in from a me park show. That is a brutal tightrope to walk in live action, and from what this trailer is showing, they may have actually walked it. Jared Leto's Skeletor does not look watered down. He does not look embarrassed by the source material. He looks like the movie understands exactly how strange and heightened this world needs to be. The skull face, the robes, the armor, the way he carries himself, all of it seems committed to the idea that this character should feel visually extreme rather than grounded into blandness. That is important because one of the fastest ways to kill this franchise in live action would be trying to make Eternia look respectable instead of alive. The trailer seems to know better, and that commitment extends beyond Skeletor. The whole trailer appears to be leaning into a kind of maximalist fantasy, energy that feels much closer to what Masters of the Universe should be than the old instinct of sanding down its weirdest edges. Eternia looks broad and mythic instead of claustrophobic. The Guardians feel colorful and distinct. The film does not seem interested in pretending this world is basically Earth with a few fantasy props scattered around. It wants to give you strange planets, glowing swords, oversized villains, and a real sense that this is an alien civilization with its own dramatic scale. That is exactly the right instinct, because the 1987 film may have become a cult object, but one of its biggest limitations was budget and scale. Frank Langella absolutely understood the assignment as Skeletor, and his performance still carries weight all these years later. But the world around him often could not fully support the size of what the mythology wanted to be. This new version has no excuse on that front. If it is going to work, it has to go bigger. Not just in effects, but in confidence. The trailer suggests it is trying. Nicholas Galitzine's version of Adam also benefits from that larger canvas. The sent to Earth as a child and searching for the sword for years angle gives the movie an immediate mythic split identity to work with. It does create a Superman-shaped echo, sure, but I do not think that is automatically a problem. If anything, it gives Adam a more emotional entry point for modern audiences who need something beyond Royal Guy with his secret sword. He is not just reclaiming a weapon, he is reclaiming an identity and a planet he was separated from long before he could understand what he had lost. That gives the hero journey more emotional traction than the property sometimes gets credit for, and that journey appears to be surrounded by the right ensemble. Camila Mendes as Teela, Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms, Alison Brie as Evil Lynn, Morena Baccarin as the Sorceress, and Johannes Hawker Johannesson as Fisto all make sense as part of a strategy built on strong, readable archetypes played by performers who can either add gravity or sharpen the comic book excess. One of the smartest things the new trailer does is finally give those supporting Eternia figures more room to register as more than just name checks for fans. If this movie is going to land, it cannot just be Adam versus Skeletor. It has to feel like a world of competing loyalties, histories, and visual identities. The trailer starts to show that more clearly now. And then there is the voice that was always going to matter. Skeletor's voice is one of those things fans carry in their heads, whether they realize it or not. Alan Oppenheimer's version is iconic for a reason, and every later interpretation has had to decide how much to echo that nasal theatricality versus how much to push toward menace. The new trailer finally lets us hear what Leto is doing, and the good news is that it does not sound timid. It sounds heightened. It sounds stylized. It sounds like the film wants Skeletor to feel like a performance, which is exactly right. A villain like this should not mumble. He should arrive. That helps a lot. So does the sheer scope of Eternia in the footage. One of the more encouraging parts of the trailer is that the film does not seem trapped in a few over-designed sets. You get forests, ruined zones, larger scale conflict, and the feeling that Skeletor's grip on this world has actual physical consequence. That matters because fantasy can feel fake very quickly when the world stops extending beyond the hero's immediate eyeline. A place like Eternia has to feel like somewhere civilizations rose and collapsed, not somewhere production design ended at the edge of the frame. The trailer at least points in that direction. What I also find interesting is the timing and the larger strategy around it. Amazon MGM is treating this like a real event release on June 5, 2026, not some half-confident nostalgia experiment. Even the cross-promotion with the new Masters of the Universe, Legends Unite game on Amazon Luna tells you they are thinking ecosystem, not just movie. That can be annoying when the movie itself feels secondary to franchise planning. But in this case, it also signals something useful. They believe this version can actually matter again as a live-action property. That kind of confidence can be dangerous if misplaced, but it can also be energizing when the material looks this committed to its own identity. Now, I am not pretending the risks are gone. They are not. Jared Leto remains a volatile casting choice for a lot of viewers, and for understandable reasons. A trailer can sell a look and a voice. It cannot prove that a full performance will stay compelling across an entire movie. The same goes for the tone overall. It is one thing to make a 2-minute trailer feel like a thrilling collision of camp, sincerity, and spectacle. It is another thing to sustain that for 2 hours without tipping into parody or empty noise. Masters of the Universe has always been the kind of property where one wrong tonal decision can make everything feel ridiculous, in the bad way instead of the fun way, but I do think this trailer clears the most important hurdle. It convinces me that filmmakers know what they cannot afford to betray. They cannot betray the color, they cannot betray the strangeness. They cannot betray the villain. And most of all, they cannot betray the total earnestness of a myth where a man lifts a sword, shouts a ridiculous line, and becomes a legend that only works if the movie believes it completely. The trailer feels like it does. So where do I land on Masters of the Universe after this new look? I think it still has everything to prove at the story level, but visually and tonally it looks much closer to the right answer than a lot of people feared. Nicholas Galitzine seems to have the heroic shape the movie needs. The supporting cast looks strong. Eternia appears larger and stranger than before. And most importantly, Skeletor finally looks like a villain who can carry the kind of operatic fantasy pressure this world requires. That is the hard part. And if they got that right, then suddenly the rest of the movie has a real shot. Because Masters of the Universe does not need to be subtle. It needs to be sincere, vivid, and mythic enough that you stop worrying about whether the premise is ridiculous and start wanting to live in it for 2 hours. That is what the best version of this movie should do. So now I want to know what you think. Does this trailer actually make Masters of the Universe look like one of summer 2026's real breakout surprises? Or are you still waiting to see whether the story can match the character designs? And more importantly, did the trailer sell you on He-Man or on Skeletor? Because I think that answer tells you a lot about whether this movie is really working, and June 5th is getting very close.